calculate. We don't have to do all these things.
Yeah.
And it's more of the mindset shift of understanding that this is another tool in our tool belt. It is not the answer to the problem. It's not the answer. It's not going to be the end all solution to give to the patient, but it's going to help us be better at what we do. So it's going to give us more information. It's going to give us more ways to explain things to our patients. So I think it's something that we can utilize. And it's been great to hear about some of our colleagues that are utilizing it for different things and learning how they're utilizing it, things for like inventory or like assessing glaucoma, analyses and stuff like that. It's really cool to see how it can be utilized. But at the end of the day, we're still the one analyzing that information.
Hello and welcome to the Chris Wolfe Podcast on iCode Media. Today I had a great conversation with Dr. Jennifer Chin. She's a lot of fun to talk to, and really what we discussed was communication techniques. We took a little peek behind the curtain of some of her social media and how that applies to her communication with her practice and her patients specifically. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, share it with your friends, and support those who support us. The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. Hello, dedicated optometrists. Are you looking for a way to support your patient's vision and overall eye health? Let me introduce you to Vision Edge Pro, a visual performance supplement that stands out in our profession. Vision Edge Pro contains a balanced blend of mesozeaxanthine, lutein, and zeaxanthine in a 10-10-2 ratio. This combination has been scientifically shown to increase macular pigment density, which enhances visual performance, including contrast sensitivity and vision in glare situations. Additionally, Vision Edge Pro provides 300 milligrams of DHA and EPA, fulfilling the daily requirements for omega-3s as recognized by the leading health organizations. This ensures your patients receive the essential nutrients their eyes need for optimal health. Whether it's for everyday screen use, night driving, or enjoying the outdoors, Vision Edge Pro supports your patients in seeing their best. Recommend Vision Edge Pro for your patients today and help them achieve clearer, healthier vision. Contact your local Macu Health representative for more details. Vision Edge Pro, because your patients deserve the best in eye health. Go to macuhealth.com and use the coupon code podcast2024 at checkout for special discounts. I saw you at the exchange.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On stage with the Eagle.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it was very fun, but also nerve-wracking.
Was it?
Yeah, I was a little scared the bird was going to do something, like weird.
That's what everybody was hoping for,
Yeah, exactly.
But is that the only thing, or do you get nervous in front of audiences, or you do this kind of stuff so much that you don't get nervous anymore?
I don't get nervous like filming on my own, but most of the time I'm doing it on my own. So like podcasts, I've done a few of those and filming things like this, but standing in front of an audience that large is very nerve-wracking to me. I'm not great with the public speaking in that realm of having thousands of people in the audience, and having the whole teleprompter and everything like that was very big. So
what do you think is different about that versus like what you do all the time on Instagram and with your reels and even more importantly, probably for our audience, like with patients?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of an intimate environment. I feel like when I'm filming, it's usually just me, and I'm not really, there's no one else to kind of like critique or like have just like this empty stare at me. Or when I'm with a patient, it's usually just them or maybe a family member in the room. So it's a smaller audience, and I feel like I can make that personal connection. I think that's the part that makes it harder when you're speaking to a larger audience, is like, even if you look at specific people, it's just kind of like a sea of like random faces that you don't know. And you don't know if they're picking up on what you're saying or if they're even really paying attention to you. And I think that's the harder part, is not being able to really connect with each person individually. And that's the hard part. But of course, having so many faces stare at you is also kind of intimidating as well.
It's interesting because what I've learned over time is that like those big audiences, especially at the exchange on the stage, you have zero idea of if they're grasping the message you're trying to deliver to them.
Yeah.
And whereas even if you're in a lecture hall and you're walking around and you're looking around at your audience, you can figure out if you've lost them, if you've said something that they completely don't understand, or they are tuning you out. You can see that really quickly. But in those big stages, it's really hard. And if you don't do it a lot, it is hard to even understand, did I make a point that didn't land with somebody else? That's another thing of just a big audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's harder because you have like a time period too. Like when you're on stage, they are very strict. You have this amount of time and we're running behind. So
yes. Yeah. That's part of the fun, right? Then when you get to do that kind of stuff, but it is nerve wracking, and it can detract from the fun if you let it.
Yeah.
But so then, obviously, like you've amassed a number of, I don't view myself as like what's the term? Like an influencer, right? But I think you're clearly an influencer. And what's interesting to me is you're an influencer beyond, beyond the walls of the profession, right? There's a lot of people that follow you that are the public, right? So how has that changed the way you communicate, or have you gotten better at communicating to the public about the messages that you want to send to them?
I feel like it's something that I've always tried to improve, like even before I started social media, but I've been doing it for a very long time, for over 10, 12, maybe 15 years now that I've been
You
doing
started as a
that.
student? You
Yes,
started
I
doing it as
started
a
as a
student?
student. Yeah. And I just found that like having a platform to just put education out there was kind of like my calling. Like that's what we are as healthcare professionals too, is we're educators when it comes down to the bare bones of what we do on a daily basis. Is it's our job to educate our patients on what the findings are and what they should or shouldn't be doing to help themselves, right? So I don't even like the term influencer, but we are influencing or trying to recommend things, right? To persuade people to take better care of themselves, and care as much as we do about their eyes and their vision. But yeah, I feel like the conversations and how I tailor them are a little bit different. So especially nowadays, like you mentioned, I do have quite a bit of followers that are non-eye care related. So I try to not use too many large terms, and I try to use analogies that are really easy for them to understand so they can grasp the concept. Because I find that there's a lot of issues with miscommunication sometimes, and even if we're in the exam room and we only have like that 10-15 minutes with them, sometimes it can go way over their head and they might just go to Google instead, try to find a different answer, or chat GPT nowadays, right? So trying to find different ways to educate people and really speak to them in a way that they understand has been something that I'm always continually trying to improve myself. But yes, it has definitely changed how I communicate with people and how I communicate with my patients and what type of content that I create.
I think what I've learned and I'd like to get your perspective on this too, is it's that you mentioned ChatGPT and Google, and the reality is that patients expect all doctors, while we know it's not true, you and I know it's not true, that all doctors are going to be as good at detecting glaucoma, macular degeneration, dry eye, and all the things that they should be detecting. And the public also expects that all doctors are going to follow the same or similar treatment protocols. But, we'd love to say that's true. We know it's not. But the thing that the patient values the most, probably, or maybe makes us more unique than other doctors, is our ability to communicate. And so have you had any like, can you think back to maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago where you said, I used to do this, but now when I say it this way, it's much more effective. Can you think about those things that maybe you see optometrists do often or doctors do often that you used to do that you don't do anymore because of the things you've learned from Instagram or communicating with the general public?
Yeah, I mean, again, I kind of used to give education to my patients in a very high level. And I think one of the things that I used to do in the past when I was a student, especially because in school you learn a lot about disease and you're really like trying to hammer the message home of like, this is so important, you're going to lose your vision. And you want to kind of like get that message across to the patient, which can be very scary at times. And sometimes you overly alarm the patient. But definitely using a lot of different analogies. Like I use a lot of dental analogies in my education with
Why do you
patients.
think that? Why do you think you do that?
Because I feel like the dental community has done such a great job with educating the public on why it's important to go in for cleanings. And people understand, like, I get food stuck in my teeth. So I need to floss and brush, right? So then I use that analogy when I talk about things like blepharitis or cleaning your eyelids and eyelashes with makeup and stuff like that. And they really understand that because maybe they just don't see it on that microscopic level because they're not able to kind of like visually smile and see, oh, I have like little crusties in my lashes as easily as they would if they had like a piece of cilantro in their teeth. So I use those types of analogies because it really kind of has an aha moment, or even if I'm explaining what optos is, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like similar to the dentist taking those x-rays of your teeth. They can't just look at them and say, oh, they look white. They have to look on the inside, right? So I use that as an analogy to say, well, just because we can get you to see 20/20 doesn't mean you will tomorrow. So that's why we do this imaging. Those are all things that have been really helpful for me. For a lot of my dry eye patients, I also use like dermatology analogies as well. I find that other like parts of medicine can kind of correlate with ours, but trying to use those are really helpful.
What about dermatology do you use that is applicable to dry eye?
So I talk about how when it comes to like styes and stuff like that, and we get like pimples and just how the pores are made and the skin texture and what we do with the skin, how it's exposed to the environment, but also obviously explaining to patients that the eyelid skin is a lot more sensitive, a lot thinner, but explain to them it goes through a lot of the similar environments, maybe a little bit more harsher because we, especially for women, maybe use certain types of products. So I kind of relate a lot of those things. And then also for some of our dry eye treatments like IPL, we kind of relate some of those things with dermatology as well, like explaining some of these treatments have been used for decades in dermatology for X, Y, and Z, issues that people have, but we've also found that they have a great application for the things that we want to use them for inflammation. So,
Yeah. Does your dad still practice?
yes, he does.
So I don't. I've met your dad a whole bunch of times when I've come to
Yeah.
San Diego. He's an awesome guy, and obviously you
Yeah.
know that. So how much longer is he going to practice?
As long as he can. I'm like, his patients love him, and there are tons of patients that refuse to see anyone but him. So he's in the office about 3 days a week still, and he enjoys it, and he likes getting out of the house. And for him, it's not even work, for him, because all of his patients are long time. He's like, I get to catch up with friends. I get to catch up with
Yeah.
people that I know and have built a relationship with. And that's something that is really big in our practice, is really treating everybody like they're a family or a friend to us. And yeah, he really enjoys it. I mean,
Did
loves it.
do you feel like you've gotten a lot of the spark? Like, my dad is an optometrist also,
Yeah.
but did you have sort of that same spark and drive? Did he like impart a lot of that on you? What was that sort of coming up like?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like being growing up in healthcare, because my mom also works in healthcare as well. I
What's
kind
your
of
mom
knew
do?
that I was going to be. So she was a dietitian, but now she works for DaVita. So she's like clinical coordinator, and she runs quite a few different clinics for
And
them.
they do
Kidney care.
nephrology or yeah,
Yes.
kidney care. Yeah.
Yeah, dialysis.
Yep.
Yeah. So growing up in healthcare, I knew that I wanted to do something in that realm. I just didn't know what path I wanted to go in. And of course, having the background of being with my dad and working in the practice when I was young, or just kind of observing things when I was young, I always knew that eye care was so special. And it wasn't until I started shadowing other optometrists that I really got to see like how much of an impact you make. So I didn't want to be so biased only, shadowing my dad. But it really is on a daily basis, we're able to make, such big impacts on people's lives and improve their quality of life. And I love that. And also being a female, I also love fashion. So this is one of the few medical professions that are actually related to fashion in some way. So I thought that was also a fun kind of intertwining mix of the two.
Do you think that it's hard, because I feel like when I think about your dad, I mean, I've interacted with you a number of times too, but I think I've interacted with your dad a few more times. But one of the things I think about as I get, because I'm, you've been out for almost 10 years, right? You've been out of school for almost 10 years.
Yes.
I'm hitting 17 this year. And I think that like there may be this expectation that I have to like you have this very clear idea of the impact that you have on your patients, both from a real like one-on-one in the clinic, obviously in your exam room. Are you still seeing patients 5 days a week, or are you less than that?
Yeah, so I'm essentially 5 days a week, but one of my days is dry eye treatments. But yes, I am seeing patients 5 days a week.
Yeah. So like, but you have a very clear, so one of the things I find is that docs who are really passionate about it, about what they're doing, and they have a real strong purpose, then they say what your dad said, is that I want to come in and see friends. I've got these relationships with people. But a lot of times I think that we in school have this idea that like, oh, I'm going to see all these cool cases, right? Like you see, and we all talk about these cool cases. And what can burn us out, I wonder, is when you get out in a normal practice and you don't see cool cases all the time.
Yeah.
You see sort of the mundane. Now you do see cool cases, but like it's that repetition of like, how do I keep? I don't know if we're prepared for that, but like just the art of like staying on top of what you're supposed to be doing for the dry eye patient and improving your communication and improving your access to what you're doing, or to the different types of tools and technology that you have. That's kind of mundane. It's not like, hey, I saw this retinal detachment today. Oh, by the way, I can't do anything about it except for send them to retina, but that was so cool and clinical, as opposed to like, yeah, I saw a patient who's a glaucoma suspect, and I'm still a little concerned, but I'm just going to see them back in 6 months, and we're going to check their pressure and repeat their visual field. Like that can feel more mundane.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you get beyond that? How do you view that as purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great thing, because that is such a like shift in perspective and just experience when you do come out into practice, because it is very true. Unless you're going into like the VA clinic, then yes, you're going to see some cool cases every single day. But yeah, when you're in and day out, you almost feel like a glorified like refractor for just like a really long time, because it may be a while before you see any cases. And you may feel like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not really impacting.
I think that burns people out.
Yes.
If you don't have the right perspective.
Yes. Yeah. And it is difficult. I would say the first 5 to 6 years, I did try to prioritize going on mission trips. So mission trips are very dear to my heart, because when I go, I really find that those patients that come to the clinics, they are so grateful and thankful that you are even there and willing to spend your time to do it. And you really, not only do you get to see cool cases, you get to be in cool environments and meet new people and just get a feel for like, this is the type of impact that I can make around the world, but I'm also doing it in the practice. And maybe my patients might not feel as thankful or as grateful as those other patients that travel weeks just to come see you at those clinics. But it really gives you perspective of maybe, you should be a little bit more humble, be a little bit more thankful of the things that you have. But also that, yes, you have the knowledge and the resources to do great things. So I love going on mission trips, and I love also mentoring optometry school students. Like I go to some clinics here close by where a lot of optometry students go to, just across the border in Mexico. And they go once a month, but I try to go like 2 or 3 times a year. And that's really great to be able to see them grow and to see them be like amazed by all the things that they can see when they go to those types of clinics.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that's though when you go on mission trips, they definitely give you perspective about what we have here and how blessed we are. The I think the thing about cool cases, right, is that cool cases really, most of them result from not mismanagement, but stuff that you wish you would have been able to catch sooner, you know? And so then you start to get back, and I think about with this with dry eye, it's like, if you've got a really thriving dry eye practice, hopefully most of the time you're not seeing the patients you've got to have level 4 DEWS 2 intervention on. And hopefully you're not even seeing a lot of patients that you have a lot of level 3 DEWS 2 intervention on. Because if you've got a dry eye clinic like that, unless you're a completely referral practice, but if you're doing comprehensive care and you maybe have some referrals, which in many cases are those level 3s and level 4s, or level 3 and level 4 based on DEWS 2 dry eye or stage therapy, like you want to get to those patients when they're really early. Same thing with glaucoma. Like, you don't want to see a patient that has a nasal step. That's moderate glaucoma. You want to see the patients that don't have any, those are way easier to manage. But getting to the point of managing the easier cases means that you have to be able to recognize them sooner, and that can feel mundane, Yeah. And it also presents a hard communication problem with the patient of like, hey, like, a lot of doctors get out of school and they think, well, how do I just tell it, like, everything's fine. It's like, I didn't provide value. Well, no, you did provide value. But I think there's a lot of that shift that can happen. And if you don't do it well, it's hard to feel like there's this real powerful impact that you have, and then you get your purpose. Cooper Vision and the AOA have joined forces in a groundbreaking initiative to transform how optometrists treat children with myopia. The Myopia Collective aims to unite our profession and its allies to challenge the status quo and elevate the standard of care for children with myopia. Everyone is invited to become a member of the collective. By joining, you pledge to act in slowing childhood myopia progression. Membership includes regular updates and information about the collective's efforts, access to educational opportunities and resources, and insights from the ambassador optometrists who advocate for community policy and changes supporting the collective's mission. Click the link in the show notes to join the collective today.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a fine line of, explaining too much about something when they are, let's say, for example, a glaucoma suspect, and explaining too little, right? Like, you don't want to not tell them about it. So then if they potentially go see another provider and they're like, why didn't my previous doctor tell me that I had these potential risk factors, right? Or if you explain too much, then they're like scared that they're going to go blind the next day, right? So there is a little bit of that finesse when you come out of school of like, how do I talk to people? Like, when you're in healthcare, that's one of the biggest things that I find that maybe we potentially lack in optometry school or just in medical school, is to learn how to communicate with people. Because at the end of the day, that is what we're doing, is communicating with people. If you can't get the message across, then you're not really doing your job right. So
You made the comment. Yeah, you made the comment of persuasion. Aaron Warner always calls it selling. He's like, you're always selling. It's not that you're selling like a product or like in this traditional sense, but you're selling, you're convincing a patient that what is wrong with them is in fact what's wrong with them, and what you're recommending them to do, in, like, to your point, lid scrubs, warm compresses, whatever the thing is, then that they will do it, right? So you are selling or persuading. How much do you practice that?
I mean, I definitely, yes, I like to call it persuading, but I also like to spend the time to educate. Because I feel like if you're just telling them you're going to do this, then they're like, okay, this person's just selling me a product that you have in office, right? Or selling me something, they're maybe getting a kickback, right? People are not, they're not blind to the fact that things like that happen, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important to explain everything, but I definitely practice that. But I use it as a tool to, like, these are potentially the lid scrubs you're going to use, and this is what it's going to do for this condition that we just discussed, so that it's going to improve X, Y, and Z symptoms and signs that you have. So I think it's all about explaining to them what's going on and why you're recommending it. Because if you just recommend it, this is the thing we're going to do as a treatment, but you don't tell them what's that mechanism of action in regards to how this is going to improve their problem, then they're kind of like, well, why do I need to do it? Like, it's, that's a hard thing for them to really like process. And then they're like, well, for them, it might not be a priority, right? So what do I spend my time, my energy, and my money on? So if you explain, then they're like, okay, well, does this have value to my life? Does this have value to my overall health, my vision, or my future? Then they can make that choice, right? So
When you walk out of an exam room and you've just given the explanation, do you actually think about like, how do you know if the patient like grasped what you were trying to tell them? Like obviously verbal cues, but
yes.
is that all, or do you actually reflect like, that missed?
I mean, sometimes I do reflect, and sometimes I'm like, maybe I could have explained that a little bit better. And I might reach out to the patient again and maybe text them or email them after the fact and just let them know, hey, do you have any further questions about whatever we were discussing? I always give the patient the opportunity to text, email, or call us. So I tell them, I'm like, this is not your only opportunity to talk to me. Once you leave this exam room, just feel free to let us know if you have questions later. I've had patients send me emails with 10, 15 questions about things, and I'm happy to get back to them because I want them to know like that 10, 15 minutes in the exam room is sometimes it can be very stressful that it's such a short period of time that they don't feel like they can get all their questions, or maybe they go home and they're starting to think about something that they're like, wait, I forgot to ask this, right? So just being available to them. But yeah, there's always times when I reflect and I'm like, I could have said this better. I could have used this analogy instead, or I could have explained that a little bit in more or less length. But just being available to the patients, I think, is something that a lot of mine truly appreciate. So they know that we're here for them, not just on their annual visits once a year, but like I'm here for them throughout the year when they have questions, or even if their families have questions as well.
When did you start to embrace that idea?
I think I've always kind of done that. Like I've always been like, I'm here to help you. Like, because I find that sometimes myself as a patient, when I go to the doctor and maybe something's wrong or I have questions about something, it's really hard for me to get a hold of the doctor. Or I'm trying to figure out what are the answers to my questions. And then I do find myself also doing what our patients do, which is going on ChatGPT or Google to figure out what's going on, right? So, and that's one of the things that I always put myself in the patient's shoes of like, where could the communication gap have been fixed or recovered? Or where could we improve this process? Because I find that a lot. A lot of patients come in, maybe they're coming in for a second opinion, or maybe they've just seen a different doctor and had a horrible experience and they tell me about it. And so that's also a great way for me to learn, okay, this patient has already had a bad communication experience with another provider. Like, how can I make that experience with me not as terrible, or at least a little bit improved, right? What can I help them with? But yeah, it's just about like being open with the patients and listening to them.
How unique do you think that it is that you take the approach of being available? Is it unique or is it not unique?
I don't think it's super unique. I know quite a few of our other colleagues do the same thing. Like I have patients texting me sometimes on
Yeah.
weekends with questions
Yeah,
and
me
stuff, and
too. Me too.
I'm not alone, right? We all kind of do that because we care. We care so much about them. I don't think it's unique at all.
Yeah. The How do you view, so you're still in clinic 5 days a week. How do you view all of your social stuff? Like, is it there to feed your practice? Are you looking for like local people to watch and be like, oh, I want to see Dr. Chin? Or do you view it as, okay, I'm going to be beyond that. And so maybe I get invited to do a thing on the stage at the Vision Source Exchange. OcuSoft comes knocking at the door and they want you to do some videos. Like what's the ROI for Dr. Chin on the content that she creates?
Yeah. So honestly, the ROA is just putting the information out there. And I talk about this a lot of the time with some of the other creators that we have in our industry that are big as well. For me, it's all about just putting the education out there. Just like I mentioned earlier, dentistry did such a great job with educating people about dental health. We have not done as well in the eye care industry. So I want to put it out there as much as possible. So it's not as much of an ROI for me. I don't get a lot of patients that come in saying, oh, I found your social media and like, this is why I'm here to see you. Like I have a separate page for our office, but I don't really generate a lot of patients from that. It's just more of like having an online presence. We
Yeah.
do a lot more community involvement, and that's how people find us, is through that or through word of mouth is larger. But my social media, it's not about me, making partnerships. I mean, that has been something that has been a great experience and opportunity that has been open to me because of that. But my main goal is ultimately to get education out there and to answer questions of patients. And even my friends will text me like, oh, can you do a video on this? Because I never knew about this. So it's just about getting the stuff out there that like people want to hear from someone that, hey, I am a doctor. This is my field. This is my career. And this is what the explanation is for this question.
I think that's why we started the podcast. So, 2019, I was having just conversations with different people all over the country. And I was like, oh, it'd be really nice to have I would come back to Omaha and I'd talk to my friends in the profession and I'd say, hey, so, Jennifer Chin's doing this and this and this. And isn't that cool? And they'd be like, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's like, you should have heard her story. I'm not very good at telling her story, And so that's why I started doing it. And then pretty soon it just becomes part of the routine. What's your routine look like? Like when you're creating things, what does it look like? You purposeful?
It's kind of a mess. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not like some of the other creators who might have like a team or people that they hire to help them with everything. I do everything on my own. So sometimes there are seasons when I'm not as good at generating content because I just don't have time. And that's something that has been really difficult for me, is just to manage that time and have that work-life balance and understand what my priorities are. That my practice and my patients always come first. So if I need to stay until 8, 9 p.m. to film something, which I have on many occasions, and I'll stay in the office to do that, then I will. But at the same time, if I'm tired and I need that extra sleep so I can prepare for another day of patient care, then I'm going to do that too. So it's kind of a mess, but I try to have a calendar set. If I do have specific things that I want to get out at a certain time, I try to film it timely, and I try to spend that extra time to really make sure that I edit everything correctly. The editing is the hardest part. It's not the filming, it's the editing that takes forever. But yeah, it's kind of a chaotic mess. I'm not as organized as some of my other friends that are doing this. So
do people, do a lot. You said a lot of people, they'll have teams that do it. They just hire a team. They shoot a video and the team edits it and they pay them.
Yeah, some people hire people to edit, and it's actually not that expensive to hire somebody to help you edit a video, and you just explain to them, this is the whole like message of what I'm trying to get across. Can you like splice it together? Some people even have like videography teams that help them with things. I have friends that have that, or they have maybe even a significant other helping them. But yeah, I just have me and my ring light, trusty ring light that's here, and my phone usually. So
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we've become large enough where I have a producer, Mariana, who's awesome, and then also editor who actually is Aaron Warner's son, Skylar. So a couple years ago, it was, to your point, it's like I was editing for the first couple of years. I would edit everything, do all the music, all the editing, all the splicing, and I got it down to where I could probably get an episode edited within 15 minutes to 30 minutes is pretty easy, as long as I wasn't making mistakes or like having to, like redo something, which almost never happens anymore. Mostly because I'm just sort of like, well, it's out there and this is who I am.
Exactly.
But like, it has been super helpful to have other people on the team because what I want to do is I just want to create the content. I want to be able to have conversations with more people, be more intentional about those conversations, be able to think about how I'm going to think about who I'm talking to and what I want to discuss. And then I don't have to spend as much time like organizing those things. So that's why I brought Skylar and Mariana on, and Mariana does a ton more stuff, but she's been really helpful with this for sure. So is there like a threshold where you're like, I gotta have somebody else do it? Is it like there's a revenue stream for it where, from your perspective, like when you're going to say, this is too much, like I just want to create content, or I'm not going to be able to create content anymore, or I'm going to have to hire somebody else so that they can help me?
Yeah, I have really kind of juggled with the idea many times. It's just about implementing it and finding the right fit, I think, has also been the problem that I've been running into. But yeah, it's just about doing that. But I think at some point I will. I think it's just too much now that I own the practice and I'm trying to manage everything here.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
full.
so
You bought your dad out. He's done. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
congrats.
ever
You
since that
definitely don't want him
transition,
to stop seeing patients.
I'm like,
Come
I
on,
need the
Dad.
help. I need the help. All the
Yeah,
help
we
I can
need
get.
it. That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm gonna be looking into it soon. Like I always kind of talk about like potentially getting even like an assistant to help me like manage my calendar because there's so many
Mhm.
different appointments and things I have to do. But yeah, I mean, I definitely want to look into it because I know it's so helpful and being able to just at least put the things out there. And that's something I also learned from social media from doing it all these years is like perfection is not something that you should aim for anymore. Like I
No.
used to want the video to be perfect and I'd refilm and refilm like 10 million times. But it's like, as long as you're getting the message across, it's okay. It's okay to be authentic. It's okay to have, mistakes or you mess up on something. That makes you more human and more relatable to people. And people actually really appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's probably my goal this year at some point to get that handled.
I think your last point is probably what will allow us to survive, and probably survive is too strong of a word, but you know, people worry about AI replacing you or replacing experts. And, I think that authenticity is still viewable and patients still want it. You get the patients in your chair that have a story that's not even related to their eyes at all, or might be, and they break down and you break down with them. I've found myself sobbing with patients or holding back, tears with patients. Like they can't get that. They can't, at least for the short term, they can't get it. And they want the imperfection. It's almost like I was having a conversation with, it was about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, with a patient who's an awesome guy. But he comes in, he's like, hey, man, everything's cool, dude. But he's a really great guy. He's like a writing teacher. He's a writer. And I'm just riding the wave, man, And, and I was asking him, in the world of AI right now, AI can craft a story, but it's not a human story. What is going to differentiate us in the future as experts, as content creators, as whatever, as doctors, right? As expert doctors with
Yeah.
patients. And there is something even in this post-COVID world where, for a while we thought we're going to be doing all these consults via telehealth. I mean, it's nice to have it as an option. Patients don't want it.
Yeah.
They don't want it anymore. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, it's going to be something that's dabbled in a little bit. And I think we have one colleague of ours that does a really good job of their telehealth services, but because they have a clinic out in Alaska where care is not easy, right? So, and they may not be able to always be there. So they try to do telehealth so that they know any serious cases, then they can see them when they go back and actually are there in person. But I definitely, to your point, agree that people love the in-person interaction. And I kind of think back to like when we talk about AI and all of those things, like when any of the equipment that we have in our office was first starting to be introduced, like, the older docs, like when my dad first like was getting Optos, everybody's like, oh my gosh, they're trying to like get rid of doctors so we don't have to dilate, we don't have to do all these things.
Yeah.
And it's more of the mindset shift of understanding that this is another tool in our tool belt. It is not the answer to the problem. It's not the answer. It's not going to be the end all solution to give to the patient, but it's going to help us be better at what we do. So it's going to give us more information. It's going to give us more ways to explain things to our patients. So I think it's something that we can utilize, and it's been great to hear about some of our colleagues that are utilizing it for different things and learning how they're utilizing it, things for like inventory or like assessing glaucoma, analyses and stuff like that. It's really cool to see how it can be utilized. But at the end of the day, we're still the one analyzing that information, right? So I think it's just another tool in the tool belt. We shouldn't be afraid of that. And I think patients still, like you mentioned, they still want to talk to us. They want to have somebody that really cares about them, that shows that they care. They don't want a computer telling them like, this is what you have, right? I think that we'll never be obsolete. Like it'll never be like we're going to be out of business in any way. Like people still will want to see us.
Yeah. If we provided value, I think you're right. I totally think you're right. Well, Dr. Jennifer Chin, thanks so much for coming on. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, they can find me online. I'm on LinkedIn, Jennifer Chin. I'm also on Instagram at dr.chinchin with 2 N's for the last name.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.